Welcome back to That Rugby podcast hosted by the Rugby Booth. We are back again. Look, Rugby Championship's got underway. Yeah, we are back. You are back. Yeah. The Rugby Championship's got underway. We fought the first series. Now that they're played in these series, it's a great time to wrap everything up with the series and go into a bit more detail on the two games we saw rather than just covering every game. So we're going to continue with this flow. But obviously, let's start where history was made. I'm going to say history was made because it's history. You obviously wearing your Wallabies jersey with pride because you've done something you haven't done in a long time, which is beat the South Africans at home.
We a couple of things we haven't done. Beat South Africa in South Africa for the first time in 11 years. No, more than 11 years, 14 years because it's 2011, right? Beat South Africa in South Africa first time since 2011. That in itself is quite a achievement to do. But the bigger part of it was to beat South Africa at altitude, 60 plus years. My dad wasn't even alive to see it the last time that they did it, right? That's how long ago we're talking, before the professional game, right? Long time ago, right? And not to get too political, but that's back in apartheid times. So this is back even like half of that time, South Africa were playing one arm tied behind their back with the majority of their population not even able to play for the Springboks, and they still held that dominant record, right? So that's very impressive from South Africa's side. But when we're talking impressive, man, look, that game was on 1 a.m. Australia time. I was awake because I had to pick up my fiance from working late, right? And so I couldn't fall asleep. So I'm like, I'll just chuck the game on, whatever. And then South Africa score like straight away. Like, here we go. They score again. Fuck, penalty, score. Down 22-0. Like, fuck, man. This is rough. This is rough going. And then we get the Dylan Peach try, and it's like, okay, that's pretty good. At least we scored. At least there's something here a little bit respectable. And then it just kept going. I thought, they said South Africa scored in the 17th minute and then didn't score again until the half. I think that was super important, like not allowing them to score on the stroke of halftime. We've seen Wallabies teams in the past be absolutely shattered by that, notably against you lot. And those points either side of halftime, as they say, are critical in the game. And so I thought at halftime, my honest opinion was this. At halftime, I was like, okay, haven't let them in for 20 plus minutes. We scored a try ourselves. That's pretty good. That's showing like some toughness. Wallabies teams in the past would have melted like chocolate in there and let in more points. So I'm like, okay, there's the positive to take out of this game at least. Then the next half started, and it's like, oh, look, I tried to Harry Wilson. Great try. Like, oh, this again, something, a little bit of something to take some pride in. Intercept try. Oh, great. Wow, it's a contest now. Yeah, I think, that's cool. We're probably still not going to win, but that's great. South Africa are going to switch something on, or we're going to switch off, and then it's all going to come undone again. And then the tries kept rolling in, and it just there like, what the hell is going on? Like, at one point I woke my fiance up because I was spasming in bed, like trying to not scream, like just like, and she's like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, 60 years. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's happening. We're doing it.
Man, what a game! One of the greatest games of all time. It's up there. It's probably the greatest Wallabies win in my lifetime that I've seen. There's been a World Cup in my lifetime, but I wasn't old enough to see it or appreciate it. But yeah, that's probably the greatest Wallabies game I've ever seen. And I think it's been it's almost a metaphor for the Wallabies journey under Schmidt. Rough openings, not everything's right, but just staying with it, staying in it, building and building and building, and then we're seeing the results of that. And I'm going to sort of meld these two games in a little bit, because then the next week, Cape Town, a loss, but a tough, gritty loss where you never felt the Wallabies were out of it, right? But the South Africans sort of went back to their traditional style, death by strangulation, that boa constrictor style. Andre Pollard, absolute sniper with the ball on the boot. And obviously a lot of players hurt in that game. But again, you could see, which is so important, is you could see what Schmidt and the Wallabies and Rugby Australia have been trying to do, and you can see the results of that. We're seeing the results of that now. We saw it in the Lions tour. I think we even saw it from the second half of the first game of the Lions tour, where the Wallabies started to come back into that one as well. Right? I think the Wallabies have been super unlucky with injuries in that series and in the South African series. Like in that second game, losing Suoliti, losing Tom Wright, huge. And then James O'Connor having to play injured. Really, really tough. Really, really tough for him, And in the first game, right, we lost James Slipper. Dylan Peach broke his jaw. Like, I don't know if you've seen the pictures. Like, one half is down here, one half are here, like nuts. So I think a lot of the slack to James O'Connor for missing those kicks. Got to remember, he got a lower body injury during the game and had to stay on because we literally had no more backs reserve. Both of us have kicked goals before just for a competition between ourselves. Not you in games, me not in games, right? Goal kick is not easy. That is not an easy thing to do, right? It requires a lot of precision and really a lot of lower body balance as well. And like if you're playing injured on one of those feet, and also in sort of slippery-ish conditions, really hard to get that plant foot set and to go. And when you're injured, it doesn't help as well. Well, let's go back to the first game, right? What a return for James O'Connor to the international stage. Just the confidence he's playing with was really great. The cutout balls were amazing. The calm head that the young Wallabies outside backs have needed there. And I think Tom Lyon has done a similar-ish job, but obviously just doesn't have quite the experience to back it up. And hence why I think he needs to stick around James O'Connor for the next series, learn from him as well. Tane Edmed, even in the second game when he came in, he had to play in the centers, but I thought he looked like it improved. It looked like every player had improved, right? And that's one of the huge things as well. No player looked out of place. Like everyone had moments where they could have done something better, but it didn't look like no player looked too like the game was too big for them. The exception maybe was Nick Champion de Crespigny. Like I know he only had a short stint in the second game, but I just didn't feel like he belonged there. Tom Hooper's improved massively. Nick Frost in the lineouts has been incredible. And then, look, let's talk about the Wallabies outside backs now. The three wingers in this series, Jorgensen, Peach, and Toole, have all looked like game breakers. Every single one of them have looked absolutely incredible. Even Kellaway, I have to give a huge shout out to Andrew Kellaway for being the best 23. They're playing winger one week, playing fullback the next. Like literally his versatility, I think, as unfortunate it is, I think the 23 jersey might be his permanently. Well, for this series, he's presumably going to be playing 15, but long-term Wallabies plans, he should be that 23 because of that versatility he allows. But man, Max Jorgensen, now, maybe a controversial statement, maybe not. I think he's the best winger in the world right now, and he's 20. Right? I think he's the best winger in the world right now. He always seems to be in the right position at the right time. Good in the air, great try-scoring ability, which is important, but also has got good defense as well, like knows where to be. Like in that first game, the disruption to the late try when Esterhausen and Creel were passing back for them, it's because Jorgensen was there. In the second game as well, it's not even necessarily like tackling ability, it's just presence and field position, right? He's not over-committing to one. He's in the channels to disrupt passes and stuff. And it's why the South Africans, bombed a couple tries, because he was just there, just in the way to stop them making those sideline breaks, which what I saw from South Africa in both the first and second game is they would go from one side of the field to the other very, very quickly, similar to the British and Irish Lions, right? They've got the pace and they've got the passing ability to do that. And I think in the second game they did it better, obviously because they didn't get intercepted like they did in the first game. But, obviously that tires out your defense, and it means your wingers have got to really, make a huge effort there and to be in the right position and to shift field position. And I think Jorgensen does that. So, I think he's got a case for best winger in the world right now. I'm going to stop talking now so you can chat.
No, I mean, look, my conversations are going to be a lot harder than your conversations because I've got to look at myself in the mirror and ask, what have we done for the past 2 weeks? But just quickly, I'm impressed. As I've said it, I've watched 4 games of rugby, and I go, there's only one team that's impressed me, and it's the Wallabies. If you had said it 12 months ago, the Wallabies were going to win one game and be up and with a chance to win the next, all the way until the dying stages against South Africa. In South Africa, you would have been laughing. You sit there and you go, there's 2 things that kind of come from it. One, are they battle tested because of the Lions series, and did that improve? And then you go, are these injuries coming because of the Lions series? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of games
Straight
now,
off.
a lot of bodies getting put into battle again. So again, all of these things can be aligned. Like, you can be battle tested because of the Lions series, and you can be having more injuries because of the Lions series, if you know what I mean.
Yep. I've got 3 quick things to finish off with on the Wallabies Springboks series before we get on to the All Blacks and Los Pumas, right? First thing, Will Skelton is out for the series against Los Pumas, but maybe in for the Bledisloe. So there's some negotiations going on that would be huge if he's in. If he's out, since he's out against Argentina, Lukan Salakaia-Loto needs to be in the squad. Now, he was in the wider squad for South Africa, but not in the game day squad. I think he needs to be in the game day squad. I think he showed through the Lions tour why he should be. Second thing, the fullback for the Wallabies is going to be a huge call, right? Suoli'i or Kellaway. This surprises me, and it's going to surprise you as well. I think it should be Kellaway fullback and Suoli'i in at 13, because what other game-breaking 13 do we have? Well, Len Ikitau. Okay, but then who plays 12? Who is as good a 12 as Len Ikitau? I don't think we have one. I think centre depth is really starting to show for the Wallabies. Now, we've got some good centres, but Ikitau and Suoli'i are world-class. They're a tier above. We've seen what can happen with 2 superstar players in that centre role. I think in the past, we've had some really good people in there. You know, Parisi, Fiketti, Fluke. Karevi, when he was younger, was a game breaker as well. But now, you know, even Pasami's been serviceable. But we've got 2 genuine superstars in the centers. I don't think you can break up that combination. I think that's just so critical to the game to have 2 really good centers. And I think Kellaway's good enough as a fullback. And I think fullback is his best spot, in fact, that you put Kellaway back there. Last thing to comment on. I was going to talk about Rassie, but I'm not going to talk. We've seen his comments after the first game. And the second game, I think, it's a stand-up guy, and he coaches the right way. What I do want to talk about is the refereeing, right? And the disparity in the 2 games. Now, Ben O'Keefe, I think, had one of the best refereeing performances of the year in that first game. And I'm not normally a big Ben O'Keefe guy, right? But I think he did a really fantastic job in that game. And, you know, you will hear South Africans complain about refereeing anytime they lose. And there were no complaints after that game. It was all directed at their players and coaches. So that in itself should tell you how that performance was. Second game, even though the South Africans lost, they were complaining about the referee. And what I will say is James Dolan was diabolical in that game. But it was diabolical to both teams, right? And that makes a difference as well. That doesn't ruin a game, right? Now, I think he made a lot of wrong calls, but he made them both ways, and that offsets it. And that's what I'd rather see. I would rather see a bad referee be consistent, because then at least even if he's interpreting the laws wrong, the players know he's going to call the laws that way. They know what he's going to call. Fine. And because we can have disagreements about what could be called, you know, for my mind, some of the things he didn't call were blatantly violations and things like that and against the laws, but at least he called them both ways, right? And yeah, I still on my thing of there needs to be some kind of like overseeing of refereeing at a wider level to make things more consistent. When even World Rugby, like this is a crazy thing, I don't know if you've seen this, but in the last 24 hours, World Rugby have released a video with Nigel Owens answering questions on the refereeing decisions made in that game where they call out decisions that were wrong by their own referee. And in the title of the video is, were the Wallabies robbed? Right? When World Rugby's releasing a video that as much as Nigel Owens has gone on to defend that, I just think that's a bad look for World Rugby to be putting out a video like that. I think, you got to call it something different. I understand you want clicks and things like that. But yeah, look, that's all. That's what I'm going to say on that. I hope the refereeing continues to be consistent, even if it's not good.
And I guess that's what we all hope for. It's just consistency from our referees. Let's move on to the All Blacks against the Pumas. Yes. Look, 2 games, in my opinion, 2 very forgettable games for both teams. The Pumas are going to celebrate their victory in the second game, which they should totally do. But neither team has been that good, in my opinion. So let's start with the first game. In my opinion, again, very sloppy. Our backline did not look good at all. We got lucky and saved by a dominant 4-pack who dominated at scrum time, who dominated at maul time. So, again, as we went deeper into that game, the domination of our 4-pack led us to the victory. We couldn't replicate that in game 2, and we can't expect that to happen and continuously happen. And these Argentinians, especially that back line, when I watched it, been watching both of the games, they were a level above the New Zealand back line, and especially with some of the wingers. And you've just spoken on your centre depth and your wing depth. I have the opposite conversation I'm having with all my Kiwi mates is, who are our wingers at the moment? Are Rieko Ioane, Sevu Reece our best wingers? And if they are they really? Like, again, no discredit to Rieko Ioane. He's played a full season, Super Rugby season at centre. And then he's come back onto the wing. It hasn't clicked yet for him. And I have no doubt, like, Rieko Ioane, the winger, is a good enough player. But do I believe right here where he is, he's our best winger? Probably not. Sevu Reece had a great Super Rugby season. But again, he's in the past struggled to translate that into
the international
rugby.
Yeah.
And I think he hasn't again. So I go, okay, well, let's look around. And I go, Caleb Clark. Caleb Clark didn't score a try in all of Super Rugby. So, like,
that's my
what are we talking about?
First question
there?
is, where's Caleb Clark, you know? Like, he's at least translated to the international scene.
Which I can understand, but there's so many flaws in Caleb Clark's game if you watch him closely. Like, defensively, he is just a man out of space. Like, he has no idea how defensively Reed plays. Again, with ball in hand, he's one of the most dominant players, and I can totally understand the attractiveness of getting him in there. And then again, what separates, and I'm going to discuss on this later, the second game from the first game was the high ball competition. So I will always say this, if you want to watch a game where a team wins a game because of the high ball contest, watch the 2025 Super Rugby final. Crusaders put up box kick after box kick, targeting Will Jordan to get up and get the ball. New Zealand hasn't replicated that, and it surprises me, and I go, okay.
Yeah. But
then in this game especially, we couldn't even somehow get a handle on Argentina's box kicks or bombs. And I sit there and I go, if we're not doing it with Argentina right now, you best believe fucking Tony Brown, Rassie's sitting there and going, we're about to send some high balls down everyone's throat over there, because we just couldn't take any high balls. And so what happened, especially in that second game, and I'm going to harp on about the second game probably more than the first, because I think what I saw a lot in the second game, I saw in the first game. I think we just got lucky that the forwards managed to get a roll on. We won the penalty count, so on and so forth. So the second game, we struggled to win the high ball, so therefore lost territory, therefore had to make 200 tackles, and we're slipping off tackles. And I've got no problem with slipping off tackles. Like, it will happen in a game. You're never going to tackle at 100%. But the more tackles you have to make definitely correlate to the more likely you are to miss them. And we saw it with, again, in the South African series. South Africa had to make more tackles, slipped off more tackles. So I just sat there and I was like, we lost the aerial battle, we lost the territory battle. And then it's something that, I mean, the Wallabies have had issues with them. I mean, you've talked about it heavily. Discipline. Discipline, we may have won the penalty count against Argentina. And there was many a times where we could have got more penalties because they were under advantage and then had like 2 or 3 penalties. Penalties across the board, we gave way too many. But the yellow cards, the yellow cards are just such a defining factor. And it's been a issue heavily in New Zealand past 2, 3, 4 years going back. Now when you look at the Rugby World Cup final with a red card, you look at Scott Barrett back before that. So I go, and the issue I have with them is they're fucking dumb. Like, Will Jordan's, I understand as a fullback you're trying to do something there, but like you just can't. Like, World Rugby has made it clear that you cannot shepherd players off balls, so just leave them. If it scores a try, it scores a try, but you giving away a yellow card isn't worth it in that situation. Sevu Reece one, again, you've been around fucking long enough. I stick out the hand as well, I totally get it, but you've got to, that one was one of the more obvious ones you will ever see. And I know there's arguments out there that like, oh, it's the dumbest rule and we should get rid of it. No, we fucking shouldn't. Like, I've seen it. Peter Breen, who runs the Rugby Bricks, has said it. Like, every other sport rewards good defense. If you think about a block in basketball, rugby league says if you can't get the ball there, it's your fault. I get that. I totally get that. Rugby union, if we started to say no, I think we'd see so many of these. It would just absolutely tear away what the attacking game is. So I can't get around that.
It makes an intercept that much more thrilling to have to do. I think, and we've talked about this in the past, particularly with the Izzy Parisi one a couple of years back, right? I don't think either of us have an issue with the law. It's the interpretation of the law and how it's applied, right? Because I think I think we both agree that if you knock it down, that's a penalty card situation, right? Like you're intentionally stopping the game. It's an intentional disruption of the game, right? But I think where you're going for an intercept and you're sort of I saw a couple of times in the Wallabies South Africa game that a couple of them were like, they're going for the ball there, it's fine. And then there was a card as well at the end of the second game. So I agree. I think I agree with you on this one. It's not a bad law. It's an interpretation question.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And I always think like if you can tell that the player's clearly going for an intercept, totally fine. Now, you'll say Sever Reece is going for the intercept, but all he's done is stuck out an arm. There is no possible way he was catching that ball.
It's got to do with like body position and things like that as well. If you got your hand out like this, it's harder to get an intercept. If you're stretching out, you can get around the ball. Like there's a lot of things, and these referees have been around enough games, and same with the TMOs. They've got people to check their decisions. Like the Easy Parisi one, that's the specific reference that stands out in my mind is he tips the ball up to go for an intercept and they still give him a card. That to me is a bad call. But
100%.
Yeah. And there was a couple in the South Africa Wallaby series where you could see South Africa going for the intercept, and the referee I think called it correctly. I think that might have been the first game with Ben O'Keefe. As that's a fair enough call. I could be totally misremembering it now, but that's just in my mind. So yeah, look, I guess as well what we've to sort of parallel our two teams, I think it's really a massive difference between them has been the Wallabies have been reducing the number of penalties they've been committing. As one of the big things in this series against South Africa and the Lions is the low penalties that Schmidt's system has given the Wallabies, which has been where we've fallen down the path and given teams easy outs. You could see in the Lions series, in the South Africa games, where we're giving away penalties, the other team was scoring, right? When the discipline's tighter, when we're creating turnovers and penalties, it's we're on top. It's simple mathematics of rugby. The All Blacks, really that second game, what stood out for me obviously was the cards. But then also, you guys scored one more try than Argentina. But Argentina just got the penalties. They did a very South African-esque win of just knocking over points, right? And that puts scoreboard pressure on, which leads to further ill discipline. We saw it a bit in the second game of the Springboks and Wallabies, where scoreboard pressure ended up getting to the Wallabies. There were a couple opportunities earlier in the game where we could have kicked it before James O'Connor was injured. And, it's a hard balance to strike. No one's perfect at it, and about knowing when to take the points, knowing when to kick for the corner. I personally am a fan early in the game of just taking the points. Right? I think early in the game, because you can never know what's going to happen to your kicker. You never know what's going to happen later in the game. And if you end up losing by 3, 6, 9 points, you're going to kick yourself later, right? So, and that's all comes back to the discipline question. My question for you now, and we'll lead on to the next series, right? South Africa coming off a 1-1 split where they had a very disappointing loss and a win which they could not take much comfort in. Yeah, unconvincing win. Yeah. New Zealand coming in on a very similar attack, although sort of reversed. Unconvincing win, followed by a very disappointing loss. Do you think that what I'm thinking here is like whose shoes would I rather be in? I mean, New Zealand's playing at home, so you got one advantage there. But look, South Africa needed that first loss against the Wallabies to kick their ass and realize not immortal. We're not the golden generation. We're not the same as the golden generation of the All Blacks, right? That undefeated streak the All Blacks had. We let a 60-year record slip out of our fingers. They come back in the second game to win. Again, they're unconvincing. If I'm a South African fan, I'm concerned that second game is giving these players a bit of false confidence. Look at things from the All Blacks perspective. You barely won the first game, lost the second game. Could be concerned about morale drop there. Or alternatively, it could be the opposite, using that as the motivation to spur them for, a better performance against South Africa. And as well, you guys have got a record on the line as well. Eden Park, they're playing you in Eden Park, right? It seems to be this is the year that Hoodoo's is broken.
No, don't say that. Don't you fucking start saying that on this podcast.
Well, but this is what I'm saying that could be factoring into the All Black psyche. And also a shout out to a fellow rugby connoisseur Ella Ferguson, one of her posts I saw was that she predicted that the All Blacks would retain the Eden Park record against the Springboks, but lose it to the Wallabies. And I think I mentioned this in our previous podcast as well. So she's a Kiwi like yourself. So I think it's in the mindset. I think if the commentators on the sidelines are thinking it, I think the players are thinking about it as well, right? And so if I'm an All Blacks fan, that's what I'm concerned about, right? I will hear your thoughts on this, but it's like, we're committing too many penalties. Does that then make you go into your shell too much, playing too conservatively, or does it lead to more penalties because you're desperate to hold on to this record? Like, I feel like it's a very funny spot for the All Blacks at the moment. Like, it feels like they're still such a world-class outfit, still number one team in the world right now, but it's like, it almost feels, and don't take offense at this, it almost feels a bit Australian-esque of about 8-9 years ago. So like right after that World Cup final, when we're still a really good team, but it's when things started, like little things started going wrong, and it led to that downward spiral. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen to the All Blacks, but I feel like that's a sort of where the All Blacks are right now. Lost a World Cup recently in the final, and just transition between two sort of era of players, almost new coach, and it's just like what is our identity? How do we play? What's going on? We're not the All Blacks that we sort of are used to. It feels a bit like that. But obviously, you've got the benefit of being the All Blacks and having that history and the the history of playing in Eden Park and all that. Like, you've got that on your side, so I think you're in a better position than the Wallabies at that era. But what I'm saying is like, it's the New Zealand equivalent of that.
That might be the most long-winded question you've ever asked on this podcast. It started, I believe, with would you rather be kind of the Boks or the All Blacks going into this, and then turned into, are we actually the next Wallabies of 9 years ago? So two things. Firstly, the hoodoo's not going to fucking end. There's no hoodoos happening in. We're going to win at Eden Park. I'm putting guarantees down on it. We ain't fucking losing at the Garden of Eden. And the reason I'm going to say, and I'm going to answer your second question first, which is this is kind of like the Wallabies. The reason we're not going to be like the Wallabies of 9 years ago is for this exact reason. I'm going to say it. Do not panic. That is the message that will be going out to All Blacks players, All Blacks teams, everyone. It won't go to the media. The media's fucking panics every day. Ever since Ian Foster took the job, the media's panicked for the past, Jesus Christ, 7 years. Let the media panic. Within the circles, there will be no panic. And I say that as well because we now have an understanding. I can understand the hoodoos and all of that stuff. The top 7 teams, top 8 teams in the world are all good enough to beat each other now. We are not going to see, unless a team can really somehow get generational talents like the Dan Carters, the Richie McCaws again, we're not going to see what we saw with the All Blacks, I think, ever again. And I think Razor's accepting of that. I think Razor's like, my thing is, so I think that's that part going forward. And then who would I rather be? And then I'm going to kind of just quickly go back into the All Blacks for 2 seconds. But I'd rather be South Africa at this point coming over. They've got nothing to lose. If they don't win these games, it's not the end of the world for them. Like, it's the hardest place for them to go and win in New Zealand. They've also fallen into the being able to say they're the underdogs. Why? They're fucking not the number one team in the world anymore. Like, all of these things play into exactly what South Africa want to do. They want to be considered underdogs. They don't want to be considered the best team in the world. They want that to be the All Blacks. They want to take that from the All Blacks. So I'd rather be in their position. And then just, to finish off, I guess, from an All Blacks perspective, don't panic. We're not going to make any changes. It's going to work out. We're going to lose games. Let's say we win every single game for the rest of the season. Let's say it happens. Let's say we beat South Africa twice, beat you guys twice, go overseas and win the Northern Series. Everyone's going to look back as like, that's the most successful season. I go, say we win one of the Springbok games, one of the Aussie games, and still win the Rugby Championship and the Bledisloe. That's a successful season. So I'm like, there's so much that we can lose games and still have successful seasons now. And having an undefeated season is so unheard of. Like, it's not a normal thing. So I sit here and go, take the memo. I understand what you're saying, and you can say that from the outside. From the inside, hold me, all you All Black fans out there, hold my view of this. Do not panic.
I heard it, I think it might have been Michael Checker on a recent podcast where he said this panic that we're seeing about, when the All Blacks drop a game, it's almost like a necessary ritual for New Zealand and the All Blacks fans in order to restore the players, like, almost, I wouldn't even say like pride, but it's like you need to be a defeat needs to be this harsh in order for you to want victory that much to reach those same levels of success.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, and that's what I feel as well. And it's so funny. We were talking about when we first started this podcast, right? Ian Foster was still the All Blacks coach, right? And what we heard at the time was they should have picked Razor. Should have been Razor back then. Can't wait for Razor to come in as the next coach. Now that Razor's in, and after this loss, I've heard, and the last year not winning the Rugby Championship, feels like every pundit in New Zealand has been like, "Oh, Razor's not proven anything. Should be getting rid of him. Like, what's going on? Like, we never should have got him in the first place." It's like, Farah, what are you guys, Australian media? Like, that's some Australian type stuff that we're hearing. Like, that's it's crazy. And I just think, this is a man that is obviously a very, very good coach, right? New Zealand has a long track record of picking very good coaches for the All Blacks. It's one of the reasons the All Blacks have been very successful. I'm with you, right? I was trying to get a sense of the New Zealand things. I think don't panic, right? And yeah, I think South Africa holds a lot of the cards coming into this, but then equally, maybe that's why New Zealand, well, then they'll feel like the underdogs as well coming into this, So I think it's going to be a really excellent series. I think both series are going to be really, really great, and I'm very much looking forward to them.
Just before you get on to your series, I just want to, with the don't panic, I also want to see that throughout the selections. A lot of people were saying, like, move Will Jordan back onto the wing, move Beauden Barrett back to fullback, lots of stuff like that. Stick true to what we have. Look, in my opinion, as you've said with Max Jorgensen, I'm going to say something maybe controversial as well, especially the French. The best halfback in the world is Cam Roigard. We haven't had him for the past 2 games. We look so much better with him. So stuff like that, just keep going, keep the process going. Run us through what you want to see, though, from your Wallabies to back up, which has been a fantastic few months of rugby for you.
Yeah, look, well, the wider squad's been announced, and we've seen some good names there. Tom Lyner's back in the lineup, which is really great. And then a few of the players that we had injured during the Springboks series are back. So Alan Alatoa's back, James Slipper's back, Nick White is back. So we got some injection of people coming back. Excuse me. Pete Samu's now in the lineup. Tizano's back in. Rob Valentini didn't play in the first game against the Springboks, and looked really good in the second game, but obviously still not fully healthy. So he's getting time to come back. Harry Wilson's is back as well. What I want to see, more of the same of what we did in South Africa across both games, in terms of the positives of those games. So keep the discipline up, right? Argentina are a very good team. So do not take them lightly, but equally they're not the Springboks, right? They were playing the series at home. I want to see a 2-0. If the Wallabies truly are back, this should be a 2-0, right? That's the standard we should be holding ourselves to again. If we want to go back to the days of this jersey, that's what we need, right? And this is, again, not talking down Argentina. And I want to sort of reference what you said before. You said, the top 8 in the world can all take games from each other. But what you said there, which I want to sort of challenge a little bit, is like, unless people get generational talents like the Dan Carters, Richie McCaws, I actually think what's happened is that these top 8 teams now have those generational talents like that. Mm-hmm. So it's more leveled the playing field in that regard. So, and that's why Argentina's succeeding. That's why France is doing well. Ireland, England, even the Wallabies now with Jorgensen and Suaalii, right? Bobby V. I could go on. There's been so many superstars for the Wallabies. It's great. It's great to talk about that. So what I want to see that consistency, the discipline. I want to see our forward pack continuing to be – they don't have to be – Wallabies don't have to be the best forward pack in the world, but what they have been is extremely solid, disciplined, and effort. And it's why we've seen great lineouts. It's why we've seen the scrums hold up against South African scrums, which all over social media, they're telling me, oh, we have such an appreciation for the scrum that other countries don't have. This is the biggest load of bullshit ever, because they were referencing how the sort of slanted feed into the scrum that Nick White and Tate McDermott were doing, right? And they're like, oh, How is this contestable? How is this legal? And then there's like 15 clips people posted of Grant Williams doing exactly the same thing. And we saw all through the British and Irish lines. So don't act like this is a one-sided thing. And don't act like, oh, you're scrum purists and you feed it directly in the middle. No team does that anymore, right? It's not, this is what it is. But the Wallaby scrum held up. When they got set in the correct way, I saw a really good video breaking down the difference between two Wallaby scrums. Keep that discipline. That's what I want to see. Feed the outside backs. Max Jorgensen at the moment, I think, is the best winger in the world. He'll score you points. And just keep more of the same. Keep on building and keep more of the same and just keep improving each time, and keep, so consistency and improvement. I don't want to see a lot of flashiness. I'd love to see Ryan Lonergan get a run at some point as well. I think he's a very, very solid halfback. And Nick Rockett's retiring at the end of the year. We need halfbacks for the World Cup. I think Ryan Lonergan should be part of those plans because Jake Gordon is also getting on in years as well. I'm just really excited. I'm really, really excited for this series.
Yeah, nice. Look, it's, again, we get the weeks by this weekend, but next week it will all go again for 2 more weeks, and then we get into the Bledisloe matchups, which is what pays the bills for myself and you. So join us again. We'll be back in probably 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks this time after both the Argentina games and both the Springboks games. So make sure you stay tuned for that. For now, I've been Luke. That has been Hughesy. We are That Rugby Podcast. See you later.
Peace.